So if you were prime minister and NATO jets Russian jets entered NATO airspace, where do you stand on that? Do you think they should be?
Got to shoot them down.
No questions. Whatever that does, however much that inflames
Listen,
tensions.
love, you're trying
Russia
ever so
needs
hard.
to be taught a lesson.
Listen, love, you're trying ever so hard. I'm the only person in the world, I think, that stood up in the European Parliament in 2014. And do you know what I said? There will be a war in Ukraine. It's coming. I'm the only person that got it right.
Farage demands NATO shoot down Russian jets. The stunning U-turn that has Westminster reeling. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button now, because what I'm about to tell you is the kind of political theater that only British politics can deliver. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Right? Let's talk about Nigel Farage, shall we? The man who once called Vladimir Putin brilliant as an operator is now calling for NATO to shoot Russian jets out of the sky. Yes, you heard that correctly. Shoot them down. No negotiations, no diplomatic channels, just raw military force. And if that doesn't make you sit up and take notice, I don't know what will. This isn't some minor policy adjustment we're discussing here. This is a complete recalibration of Farage's entire Russian narrative. And it's happening right before our eyes at precisely the moment when Keir Starmer decided to go nuclear on Reform UK at Prime Minister's questions. Coincidence? I'll let you be the judge of that. Here's what happened. Wednesday afternoon, the Commons PMQs in full swing. And Starmer unleashes what can only be described as a political cruise missile aimed directly at Reform UK. Kremlin cronies sowing division. He called them. Not just critics, not just opposition, but actual cronies of Putin's regime. That's fighting talk in anyone's language. And in the hallowed halls of Westminster, those are words that sting like nothing else. Now, Starmer didn't pull this attack out of thin air. He was referencing something rather explosive, something that should concern anyone who cares about the integrity of British politics. Nathan Gill, the former Reform UK Wales leader, has just been convicted of bribery by the Russians. Let that sink in for a moment. Convicted of taking Russian money to spread propaganda. This isn't speculation. This isn't mudslinging. This is a court verdict. Farage's response. He called Gill a bad apple. Just one bad apple, mind you. Nothing to see here. Move along. But here's where it gets deliciously complicated. Because you don't simply dismiss a Russian bribery conviction with a fruit metaphor and expect everyone to nod along. The optics are, to put it mildly, catastrophic. And speaking of optics, let's rewind to that rather memorable 2014 GQ magazine interview, shall we? When asked which world leader he admired most, Farage didn't hesitate. Vladimir Putin. As an operator, but not as a human being, he clarified, as if that makes it better. He praised Putin's handling of Syria, called it brilliant, then threw in a quick disclaimer about journalists in jail, as though that would balance the scales. It was the political equivalent of saying no offense, but before saying something deeply offensive. Make sure you're subscribed, because the twists in this story are coming thick and fast, and you'll want notifications on for what's developing next. Fast forward to now, and Farage is scrambling, absolutely scrambling, to rewrite this narrative. He's telling Bloomberg that Putin is irrational, that he's a very bad dude, and that the idea he's soft on Russia is just nonsense. The lady doth protest too much, methinks. Because here's the thing about political rebranding. It only works if people have short memories, and the internet, bless it, never forgets. But credit where credit is due. Farage isn't half-hearted about this pivot. When asked what he'd do if Russian jets crossed into NATO airspace, as they did in Estonia back in September, his answer was stark and unambiguous: shoot them down. 3 words. No equivocation. No diplomatic dance. Just raw, military response. It's bold, it's aggressive, and it's designed to make one thing crystal clear. He is not, I repeat not, soft on Putin. Except, is anyone actually buying this? Because the timing is rather convenient, isn't it? Starmer calls you a Kremlin crony on Wednesday, and by the end of the week you're calling for Russian jets to be blown out of the sky. It's almost as if someone's political survival instincts kicked into overdrive the moment the K-word, Kremlin, was attached to their party's name. Now, Farage claims he had high hopes for Trump bringing Putin to heel, that some kind of compromise could be struck similar to the recent Gaza-Israel agreement. But that hope, he now admits, has evaporated. Putin, he says, has made a fool of Trump, refusing to engage with peace efforts, and now Farage suspects will see Tomahawk missiles heading to Kiev in the coming months. It's a stunning admission from someone who once praised Putin's political acumen. Here's where the rubber meets the road, though. When asked about Starmer's proposal for a coalition of the willing, essentially European troops in Ukraine to enforce a potential ceasefire, Farage pumped the brakes. "I'd be very cautious about doing that," he said, though he voiced support for a UN-style force instead. "So we'll shoot down Russian jets. Yes, but boots on the ground? That's a different conversation entirely." You can almost see the political calculation happening in real time. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon because this story is far from over, and the next chapter could drop any day now. Let's talk about the elephant in the room for a moment: credibility. Farage has spent years cultivating a particular image when it comes to Russia. Not quite pro-Putin, but certainly not anti-Putin either. More of a let's understand Putin's perspective kind of stance. It's played well with certain segments of the British electorate who are tired of what they see as hawkish foreign policy. But that position has become politically toxic overnight. The Nathan Gill conviction changed everything. Suddenly, this wasn't about differing views on foreign policy. It was about actual Russian interference in British politics, with someone from Farage's own party taking the money. Farage called the revelations appalling, and you can hear the genuine fury in his voice when he discusses it. But fury doesn't answer the central question Starmer posed. What did Reform UK leadership know, and when did they know it? "We had a bad apple in this bloke." Yes, Farage told Bloomberg, trying to contain the damage. But one doesn't simply have a bad apple when it comes to Russian bribery. This isn't someone fiddling their expenses or having an inappropriate relationship. This is someone convicted of taking money from a hostile foreign power to spread propaganda. The implications are staggering, and no amount of fruit-based metaphors will make them disappear. What makes this entire saga so fascinating is watching someone who's made a career out of being the political outsider, the straight talker who says what others won't, now having to engage in the very political gymnastics he's always claimed to despise. The man who built his brand on authenticity is now in full damage control mode, and it shows. His defense of those 2014 comments is particularly illuminating. In 2024, he told the BBC he disliked Putin as a person but admired him as a political operator who managed to take control of running Russia. That's quite the distinction, isn't it? It's like saying you dislike what a dictator does but admire how effectively he dictates. The logical contortions required to hold both positions simultaneously are rather impressive, in a depressing sort of way. Subscribe now if you haven't already, because British politics is serving up drama that rivals anything you'll find on streaming services, and this is only the beginning. But here's what's truly interesting about this moment. Farage isn't just battling Starmer or trying to distance himself from Russian associations. He's battling his own past statements, his own judgment calls, his own political instincts that told him cozying up to Putin's image was acceptable. And in politics, there's no enemy quite as dangerous as your former self with a microphone. The bellicose language Farage is now using, calling for Russian jets to be shot down, branding Putin as irrational and a very bad dude. This is the language of someone overcompensating. It's too much, too fast, too convenient. If you genuinely believe Putin was a threat all along, why the praise in 2014? Why the admiration for his serious strategy? Why the nuanced position that suggested understanding his motivations? The answer, of course, is that Farage's position has evolved not because the facts changed, but because the politics changed. Putin was one thing when he was a distant authoritarian doing authoritarian things in faraway places. He's quite another when someone from your own party has just been convicted of taking his money. Suddenly, distance isn't just advisable, it's essential for political survival. And let's be brutally honest about what Starmer did at PMQs. He didn't just criticize Reform UK's policies or their approach to Russia. He questioned their fundamental loyalty to Britain. Kremlin cronies sowing division versus Labour patriots working for national renewal. That's not policy debate. That's an attack on their very legitimacy as a British political party. It's scorched earth politics, and it's designed to do maximum damage. Make sure you're following British News Blog for all the latest, because this situation is developing by the hour, and we're the ones bringing you the unvarnished truth. Farage knows exactly what Starmer's doing, which is why his response has been so aggressive. You can't be seen as soft on Russia in British politics. Not anymore. Not after Ukraine. Not after years of documented Russian interference in Western democracies, and certainly not after one of your own people has been convicted of taking their money. The political ground has shifted beneath Farage's feet, and is desperately trying to shift with it. The irony is delicious, though. Farage, who's made a career out of being the anti-establishment rebel, is now having to prove his establishment credentials by taking the most hardline position imaginable on Russia. Shoot them down. It's almost Churchillian in its bluntness, except Churchill never praised Hitler as a brilliant operator before declaring war on him. What happens next is anyone's guess. Does this narrative shift work? Do voters buy Farage's conversion from Putin admirer to Putin destroyer? Or does the stink of the Nathan Gill conviction linger, making every subsequent statement about Russia sound like desperate damage control? The next few weeks will tell us everything about whether Reform UK can survive this scandal. One thing's certain, British politics has just gotten a lot more interesting. When the leader of a major political party is calling for military action against Russian jets while simultaneously trying to explain away why someone in his party took Russian money, we're in uncharted territory. This isn't normal political scandal. This is something else entirely. Subscribe to British News Blog right now, because we're going to be following every twist, every turn, every desperate pivot in this unfolding drama, and you won't want to miss a single moment. The stakes couldn't be higher. Farage is fighting for Reform UK's credibility, fighting to distance his party from Russian influence, fighting to prove that whatever happened with Nathan Gill was an isolated incident and not symptomatic of something deeper. But in politics, perception is reality. And right now the perception is damaging. When the Prime Minister calls you Kremlin cronies in Parliament, that's not something you simply brush off with a few tough-sounding soundbites about shooting down jets. What's particularly galling for Farage must be that he's being outmaneuvered by Starmer, someone he's always considered pedestrian, uninspiring, lacking the common touch. But Starmer has landed a blow here that's genuinely hurt Reform UK. By tying them to Russian interference through Gill's conviction, by questioning what they knew and when they knew it, Starmer has put Reform on the defensive in a way that few have managed before. And defense is not where Farage wants to be. His entire political brand is built on attack, on being the one asking uncomfortable questions, on challenging the establishment narrative. Now he's the one with uncomfortable questions to answer, the one trying to control the narrative, the one looking defensive and reactive rather than proactive and commanding. The question of what Farage and other Reform UK leaders knew about Nathan Gill's activities remains unanswered. We had a bad apple doesn't cut it when that bad apple was your Welsh leader. What vetting processes were in place? What oversight existed? Were there warning signs that were ignored? These are legitimate questions that demand legitimate answers, not dismissive metaphors. Hit subscribe and stay tuned to British News Blog, because we're going to keep pressing for those answers while everyone else moves on to the next news cycle. So here we are. Nigel Farage, once the man who called Putin brilliant, now calling for Russian jets to be shot down. It's quite the journey, quite the transformation, quite the political necessity. Whether it's genuine conviction or calculated survival, only Farage knows for certain. But in politics, motivation matters less than outcome. And right now the outcome is a Reform UK leader desperately trying to prove his tough on Russia while his party deals with a Russian bribery conviction. The next time Farage stands up to talk about foreign policy, about Russia, about national security, his opponents will have ammunition they've never had before. They'll point to Gill's conviction. They'll quote that GQ interview. They'll ask why the conversion was so sudden and so convenient. And Farage will have to keep answering, keep defending, keep explaining. That's the price of political repositioning. You can change your position, but you can't erase your history. This is the kind of political drama that defines careers and parties. Reform UK is at a crossroads. They can either successfully distance themselves from Russian associations and rebuild their credibility on foreign policy, or this scandal becomes their defining characteristic, the thing that shadows every campaign, every election, every policy announcement. Farage knows this, which is why his response has been so forceful, so immediate, so unequivocal. Whether it's enough remains to be seen. British voters have long memories, and they don't take kindly to parties that seem compromised by foreign powers, especially hostile ones. The coming months will test Reform UK in ways they've never been tested before, and it all started with Starmer's brutal assessment. Kremlin cronies sowing division versus Labour patriots working for national renewal. Those words will echo for a very long time. This is British News Blog, bringing you the unfiltered truth about British politics. If you're not already subscribed, do it now, because stories like this don't come along every day. And when they do, we'll be here to break them down, analyze them, and help you understand what it all means for Britain's future. Until next time, stay informed, stay critical, and keep watching.